Hello, folks. Welcome once again to Radio Days with Gary Music Miller. I'm Dave Black, your co-host. This is Gary Music Miller, Hall of Famer, and West Virginia Broadcasting Hall of Fame member since 2015, I believe it was.
Yeah.
He is enshrined here in this very building in which we are broadcasting from, so to speak. We are at the West Virginia Museum of Radio and Technology. They are on 1640 Florence Avenue in Huntington. If you want to take a visit, I suggest you do so. It is a fantastic facility. We urge you to come out and take a look at everything they have. If you like museums, and even if you don't, you need to come out and check this place out. It is an absolute fantastic place to spend, however long. It's like the Smithsonian of radio and television.
It really is.
There's a lot of things here to look at. Their website is www.mrtwv.org, O-R-G. So give them a look on the web, give them a look in person, and I'm sure that you will not be disappointed. Also, we'd ask for you to like, share, and subscribe. Click the little bell so you'll be notified of any new content that's uploaded. We ask this, we're not monetized, we're not getting a dime off this. This is a labor of love, and we want you to stay informed and know when all the new content is available for you to view. So that little bell will ding dong and let you know that these two ding dongs are ready to go. So with that said, let's give it over to Gary, and Gary's going to run down what we're going to talk about today.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be back after a little bit of a time off because of the weather, because I got a little ill. So I'm well, though. No, nothing major, and the weather is cleaned up for us, so we're back. And I really want to thank everybody who's tuned in, who has subscribed, the subscribers especially. Amazes me, and we hope you will enjoy today's broadcast. Or podcast or webcast, whatever you want to call it. I believe the last episode this girl's referring to, I got one of the things we set up at the beginning of the show on the first episode was that this was going to be based on banter between you and us. This is kind of like Facebook to me, This is a place for you to get a hold of me, talk to me. I can get back to you and talk to you. And we can do what you want us to talk about. And that's what this I got a direct message, or a private message, if you will, from Tina in Portsmouth, Ohio. She has followed me on Twitter for a long time, and Twitter's just one way you can get a hold of me, at Gary Music Miller. We'll go over other ways to get a hold of us in a few minutes. But Tina wrote me, and I transcribed it over to this little card. She said, I listened with great interest to your episode where you saw and met some of the great entertainers of the 70s and 80s. I think that was the last show we did, I believe. And she said she listened to me on Key in 1992 when I interviewed Billy Ray Cyrus. In case somebody out there doesn't know, Billy Ray came from our town, basically. He played the Ragtime Lounge in Huntington all the way up to his fame exploding in 1992. And one day we may do a feature show about how Billy Ray's fame and rise to fame and how it affected some of us around here. It was kind of crazy at the time for radio people and his relatives and so forth. I'm not going to talk about Billy Ray today, but she said, I wondered what stories you might have about other artists you interviewed. And then she said, thanks for providing the forum for exchanging ideas, and they miss me on the radio. Thank you, Tina. I miss radio too, but radio the way it used to be. Right now, I think it'd be lost. Telephone interviews, interesting subject, I think. Got a couple of stories that come to mind immediately. I did interview quite a few people while I was on the radio when they wanted to get some additional exposure. They would usually give us a call or set up an interview with somebody, usually a new artist. But I've got something I would call the Donny Osmond story, if you will. This is an interesting thing. Donny Osmond was basically a teen idol. He had a lot of hit records in the early 70s. I think he recorded his first album when he was 13, I think. And he basically had a ton of hit songs. he was extremely young, and the audience basically was pretty young. I think mostly young girls, had their posters on the wall and whatnot.
Well, he started out with his brothers singing
He sure
the
did.
Osmonds as a group. And,
Yeah, he sure did. And of course, his sister Marie went in another direction, and I think maintained her celebrity through the period in country radio. But Donnie, I remember playing, I think the last charted song for Donnie was in '76, a song called Come On Marianne. It was a cover of the Four Seasons classic, and I really liked it, and I put it on WCMI down in Ashland. And we played it in '76, but after that, I mean, he didn't hit the chart at all. His popularity began to wane, if you will, and I think the record label eventually dropped him. He did not have a record deal for a while. So in 1989, he was not the coolest person to be talking about. His day to shine had come and gone, and he was regarded as kind of a teen idol that had faded. And he did not have a record deal here in the United States. And guy at Capitol Records called me and said, I was music director at WKEE, as you probably know by now, and one of my jobs was to listen to new music and bring it to the attention of the program director. So I took the call. It was Capitol Records. Capitol said, I've got a new song I want you to listen to. We just signed this guy. And I said, okay. And they said, you're going to hear the name and you're going to immediately turn on your negative brainwaves, but we want you to give it a chance. And I said, all right. He said, the artist is Donny Osmond. The song is Soldier of Love. And I said, you're kidding me, Donny? And he said, yep, Donny. We just signed him. Listen to the song. So I told him I would. Got off the phone, grabbed the CD that had been sent to me, and I had not listened to it partially because it was Donny Osmond, I think. But I put the CD in, listened to it. It's a great song. Just a wonderful song. If you've never heard it, bring up Soldier of Love by Donny Osmond, his comeback record in 1989. But this was in the formative stages. Listened to it, loved it, took it into my program director. And I sat down at my PD's desk and I said, I got a song I want you to listen to. I said, I'm not going to tell you who it is. I just want you to listen to it. So he put it in the CD machine, played it. He said, yeah, it's a pretty good song. I said, who is that? And I said, I think we should consider playing it. I said, it's Donny Osmond. And in predictable fashion, I think he put the CD back in the case, put the case, slid it back over to me, said, song's great, but I don't think we can get by with playing Donny Osmond right now. He's got some negative energy around him and some negative publicity, and just he hadn't done anything. He disappeared from view. So it would be like today trying to play, I don't know who, but there were guys that just had teen careers. Sean Cassidy, Leif Garrett come to mind.
Bobby Sherman.
Bobby Sherman's a good one. So, and that have a very young and, not a mass appeal audience. So I said, I went back to the phone in my office, called Capitol and said, PD likes the song, doesn't like the fact about the artist. And he said, well, why don't you do what you did with him when he told you he liked the song? He said, they actually started doing this in New York. They had a mystery artist, basically kind of contest or presentation. We're going to play this song, you tell us who that you think this is. So basically it came down to playing the song for 2 or 3 weeks and not mentioning the artist, just playing the song and seeing what kind of reaction you got. And I said, well, I would go for that. Let me go back into the PD's office. Went back into the PD's office. A lot of negotiating in my job. I said, what if we played the song, but we didn't mention who it was? I said, I'm telling you right now, if we add the song, we're not going to be the only radio station in the country to do so. And I'm telling you now that the New York radio station is having great success with the song. They started playing it. They didn't say who it was. Then they eventually told who it was, and they actually had Donny come in on the air with them and talk about how this resurgence came about. And the PD said, okay, yeah, we can do that. We'll we'll play the song for a couple of weeks, see what happens. I don't think it'll kill us. So we actually had a jock meeting, and we told everybody we're going to play this song. We don't want you to tell anybody who it is. If they call in and request it, you can tell them it's Donny Osmond, but I said no mention of it on the air. So we did just that. We played it for a couple of weeks. We got phone calls on it. We got requests for it. People asking about it. 3 weeks down, 3 weeks down the road, we started mentioning who it was. And the song had a great chart life, made it up, I think, to #2 nationally. I don't know what kept it out of #1, but it did extremely well for him, and it marked his comeback. And he's since done everything under the sun. Dancing with the Stars, Masked Singer, he's just everywhere. I mean, and he had a tremendous run with his sister in Las Vegas. They had like the #1 show for 10 years. But how this ties into a phone interview, I got off the air one night at 7 o'clock and I walked out to the lobby, and there in my mail slot was one of these pink "while you were out" slips, which they took phone messages and put them in our mail slot. I put the thing, "while I was out, Donny Osmond called," and there's a phone number. I'm going, oh my God, Donny Osmond called for real? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Donny Osmond called me and the receptionist didn't put him through to me? That was kind of unbelievable to me.
You think that's a rib?
Yeah, so at 7 o'clock I went into my office and I called. I thought, well, it's 7, it's probably like if he's in Utah or something, it's Mountain Time, it's 5, Pacific Time, it's 4. I'll give the number a try. I call the number, and by golly, Donny Osmond answers, and it's like a studio of his. And I said, "This is really you?" And "Yeah, it is." I said, "This is Gary Miller from WKEE." Well, he gets, "Oh my God, I called you just, thank you. I've been reading the trades, found out you guys were playing the song, and I've been calling people telling them how much I appreciate the opportunity to get back on the radio and to have a recording contract again, and just appreciated that you gave the song a chance." And I said, "Well, you know, that they deserve it." Interview tomorrow, and he gave me, I think he said 1 o'clock my time, and I went into the station. I went on the air. I was on the air from 2 to 7 then, 2 to 7, and at 1 o'clock I talked to him. We taped an interview. He was he was a really personable guy and a very nice guy, and so that's my Donny Osmond story. And,
Kind of a novel gesture on his part these days to think about.
Yeah, you don't think of too many people, but I think he really is appreciative of the sport, and he realized the problems that his career was having, and he didn't want to just hang it up totally, and this was a chance to breathe fresh air into him. It was a fresh air year for a lot of people. Roy Orbison had a comeback song called "You Got It." It was out in '89, and Roy, I think, had passed by then, hadn't he?
I believe so.
I believe so.
Is either that or when he was with the Traveling Wilburys?
Yeah, yeah. But so Donny did a great interview, and maybe you heard it, and we appreciate that. I don't have a whole lot of stories. I got a Def Leppard story to share with you. In I believe it was 82. I checked on these dates, and 82 or 83. It was probably 83. I looked up Def Leppard concert dates and found out that they played Charleston in 1983. And I know that when they played the area, Huntington or Charleston, I interviewed I believe it was the lead singer, a guy named Joe Elliott, I believe was his name. I believe it was Joe Elliott that I talked to. But once again, the PD came in at that time and said, "You're gonna, you know, we're going to be interviewing. You're going to be interviewing Def Leppard." It was like cool. They'd come back with "Pour Some Sugar on Me." Pyromania was a big album. I think it was the Pyromania tour, and they had really made their mark in top 40 radio. So I was happy to talk to him. Did a great on-the-air interview, and then this is weird. A little over 20 years later, I think the date was 2005, Def Leppard came back to Charleston. And it's weird because Joe Elliott's still with them, and I'm still with Key. And the PD at that time came in and said, "You're going to interview Def Leppard." I said, well, that's funny. I interviewed him about 20 years ago. And he gave me the name, and again, I believe it was Joe Elliott. And I said, that's the guy I talked to. So he gets on the phone, and I said, you won't believe this, 20 years ago, you played the area, and I interviewed you on this very radio station. He goes, well, that's crazy. He said, people don't last in your business that long.
No.
You're not going to be at the same radio station. I'm not going to be in the same band. He said, that's amazing. So we did a great interview, sort of a catch-up interview, and then he ended it with, in 20 years, let's do it again. So I've got till, what, 2025?
Well,
Yeah, 2025.
we'll just hang around here, maybe you'll show up.
Yeah, 2025, we'll try to call it and do a 20-year thing. Got a shoulder, I feel like a bee stung me or something. I remember the very last interview I think I did on the phone. I did some weird interviews at the end. Who was the guy that was married to Britney Spears?
Justin Timberlake?
No, it was
no.
I can't remember his name, but
I
I
don't
did an interview with him.
I just took a guess.
Yeah, it was a guy that was basically known for being married to Britney. One of the last interviews I did, and I had no chance to prepare for this at all. The PD walked in and said, I just talked to the record label, and Pink is going to be calling some radio stations, and she's going to call us on what we called the Star Line, which was a private number we had that we only gave out to a few people. She's going to be calling you, and you need to put her on the air. I said, well, of course, but I didn't know what to do. I got really, the reason that sticks out in my mind is I was intimidated. And I was intimidated because I thought she was, up there, and I figured she'd probably chew me up and spit me out, as a small town radio DJ. And she ended up being the sweetest person in the whole world. She was just great. And she ended the interview inviting me to Thanksgiving dinner. And I was like, what? But I said something about I'm going to be working on Thanksgiving, and I don't know whether I'm going to get delivered dinner. And she said, well, you come out to my place and have dinner.
Now, had you showed up at her place, you would have probably gotten taken to jail for trespassing.
Exactly. It would have been locked.
Yeah.
The gate would have been locked, and dogs would have been after me and everything. So that's a little bit of what it was like to get to interview people that I didn't met. Can I mention something else real quick? I just remembered two very early key experiences with me. One with Leif Garrett. Leif Garrett, I mentioned him earlier. Leif had a couple of hit records out in the late 70s, early 80s, late 70s, I think. And the record label got him on the phone with me, and he could not hear me. There was all this background noise, and the interview lasted about 30 seconds, I'm guessing. I said, wait, I got Leif Garrett on the line. We went live with this. We didn't record it in advance. And Leif's like, hello? Hello? And I said, hi, Leif, how are you? Hello? And that's all you could hear. And so that one was memorable, but not for the right reasons. And then I mentioned to you one time, this group called Diesel. It's from like the Netherlands, I think, somewhere, like where Abba's from or something. Somewhere in the Netherlands that doesn't speak English. And Diesel had a song called Sausalito Summer Nights. It was a minor hit, and it was out maybe in 80 or 81. I haven't done a lot of research on that song, but they got on the phone with me. The record label was there, but not on the phone with me. So this guy calls in, and the record label says, I got Diesel on the line for you, and he leaves. And the guy from Diesel gets on the air, and he doesn't speak English. So I'm talking, he's talking, and I said, is there anybody there that can speak English? And, he just kept talking in his native language. And finally, I had to cut the interview short. I said, well, it probably was very interesting if we had an interpreter. So that's a couple things.
Now, did you or did you not interview Billy Vera?
I never got to interview Billy.
I thought you interviewed him.
No.
Because I know you guys pretty much broke at this moment.
We broke at this moment. That was a television song. I got known for television songs back in the 80s.
That was a great song.
Songs from Days of Our Lives. Gloria Loring and Carl Anderson did Friends and Lovers. I saw them do that on a TV show. I said, let's play it. Tonight I Celebrate My Love by Roberta Flack and Peabo Bryson was a love song they were using for a couple on Days of Our Lives. I heard it there, brought it in, we played it. And at this moment was out and actually minorly charted in around 1980, 81, whenever it was originally recorded.
Right.
And it was used on Family Ties. It became Alex Keaton's and his girlfriend, I can't remember, the girl he ended up marrying, Tracy Pollan, played the part. But every time they would be brought up, they would play this song, and it was usually the studio version of the song. But finally they had a big breakup or something happened, and I remember Rick Swan, whose name you may remember, came into my office and said, we need to be playing the song people are asking for. It was on last week's Family Ties. And I called my independent record promoter and I said, do you have any idea how we can get this song? He said, I don't, but I'll find out. He called me back. He said, it's on Rhino Records. It's an old compilation. And that, all Rhino did, kind of like K-Tel, they would put old compilations up and they would release them. And he said, the only version of that song is the live version on Rhino. He said, but I can get it to you. And he did. He sent me the song. I listened to it, except for a little bit at the end where he plays with the audience before he sings the last line. We edited a little bit of the audience out, but we started playing it, and it got incredible reaction. And all around the country, they started adding it. The reason I know I'm probably the first station to put that song on the air is when I would call Radio and Records magazine every week and tell them what new songs we were playing. And I said, we've added this song, Billy and the Beaters, at this moment. They said, what? They had no idea. It was not in their computer system. Nobody else had reported it. So I told them who it was and that it was on Rhino Records. And the rest of the country followed suit. It went to #1 and was Rhino Records' only hit song.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
And the song had one of the great lyrics of all time in this song.
Let me see if I can guess. If you'd stay,
I'd subtract 20 years from my life.
That's
absolutely one of the
song.
great lyrics in the history of any love song ever produced.
It sure was.
That, and there's another one that didn't. A lot of people like it. A lot of people don't. Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell. One of the lyrics in there is what is it? I think it's and I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. What a fantastic lyric. Glenn Campbell wrote that, of course, I think.
Yeah.
And he, what a brilliant mind.
Exactly.
Oh,
Where these guys
it's fantastic.
come up with these things, I just don't know.
It is really good. And a lot of people don't remember, Glenn Campbell was a studio musician before he started on his own. He was a member of a studio group called the Wrecking Crew, and they were the most in-demand session musicians in Nashville at one time.
Wow.
And he went on to be in the band that did Tequila. And I'm losing my train of thought. I know the name of the group, but I've lost it now. But he was in that group. And but those lyrics, back to that, lyrics were something.
He was a writer, a great writer too.
Absolutely.
He wrote the group The Vogues. They used to make fun of me with the Vogues. Every time the Vogues came to Huntington, I would end up having to introduce the show. And I did like 3 Vogue shows. And people would pass me in the hall at the radio station and say, ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Vogues. And they'd say that to me, and I'm like, get away from me. But the Vogues had a hit song called Turn Around, Look at Me. And I found out later that Glenn Campbell wrote that song.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, it's a great song too. One of the great stalking songs of all time. You turn around, no matter what you do, I'm going to be there, sort of like Every Breath You Take by the Police. Turn around and look at me. So
the Stalkers' national anthem.
Stalkers, too, a couple of them, yeah. Well, how are we doing?
We're doing fine. You got anything else you want to share with everybody? And is there any?
I don't know. I do have a story. Somebody in the apartment building I live in said she liked the story I told on the first week. If we have time for this.
Sure, got plenty of time.
Okay. Well, this is a story that doesn't really have to do with radio, but it does. But it's sort of like what it's like to be Gary Music Miller. And she enjoyed the story I told the first episode about a record sticking on me and me not knowing it when I went to the bathroom. So if you haven't heard that story, go back to episode 1 and listen. But in 1988, I got really, really sick. It was worse than sick. I was at home. Not going to try not to get too graphic on this, but it's part of the story. I felt like a bomb went off inside of me. I went inside and taken by ambulance into the hospital. Doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They opened me up. I was on the table for a while, and my colon had actually ruptured, and I was filled with gangrene. So they cleaned me up, and doctors came out and said, "We don't know what's going to happen with him." So I'm very lucky to be alive. But I was in ICU for a week, in the hospital for 3 weeks, and off work for 3 months. And a couple of days after I got out of ICU, I had been moved to a regular room, and all of the, I'd been in ICU for a week, so I'd had no shower. They bring you in a little pail of water and a soap, bar of soap, and a washcloth that tell you to wash yourself off, but I was in no real shape to do very much of that. And I had tubes everywhere. I was on an IV in my wrist. I was on what was called an NG tube, up my nose, down my throat. And I was on a catheter.
You know what NG stands for, don't you?
I don't.
Yeah, not good.
Not good too, but it's not. You try to swallow with one of those things.
Yeah.
It's horrible when you're on a ventilator. Never done that, but I got every hole in my body plugged up with something. I was on a catheter too, IV, the NG tube. And I hadn't had a shower in a while. My hair is thick anyway, and it gets very, very wild when I haven't had a shower. So I look crazy. So it's 2 in the morning, and I'm asleep, I'm on medication. And this nurse comes in. She walks over to the bed and says, "I heard you were Gary Music Miller." And I shook my head very weakly. Yes, yes. And again, I've got a tube up my nose, down my throat. I'm on an IV. I'm on a catheter. My hair's wild. I'm just waking up. I look like crap. I'm near death. And the girl looks at me and says, "Boy, you don't look at all like you sound." And I was like, I turned 7 shades of red, I think, and I don't know whether that was after being mad or being upset by it or being embarrassed. But she said that to me, and that was something that didn't set well with me at the time, but now it's kind of a funny story that I've told people when they see that, to enjoy that story.
I think
that's what it's like to be Gary Music Miller.
I think that was when I came to visit you once, and you were in there, and you just had that surgery, and they cut your colon up and put it back together and all this stuff. And
yeah.
I walked in and me being me, of course, I said, I heard they had to sew your colon back together in another piece there, and you kind of went like this.
Yeah.
And I said, so I guess now you have a semicolon. And that's when you mumbled,
"Get out."
"Get out." So I had to do an about face and abruptly say, "All right, see you later," and I left.
Yeah, I threw a lot of my wife said I was really rude to people. I just felt horrible.
Oh, that was
until
great.
you've been there.
I said the same thing to my dad. My dad had colon cancer surgery, and they did a section of his colon. And I said the same thing to him. I walked in, and he gave me the same answer: "Get out."
Get out. Well.
So I've learned my lesson.
But shall we mention that Tina got a hold of me, direct messaged me on Twitter, at Gary Music Miller on Twitter. That I have a Twitter, I don't have a Facebook. I set up the Twitter before I left Key, and it was so I could let people know where I was going to be. And a couple of weeks later, it's like, I'm going to be on the unemployment line. Come see me. You can get me at Gary Music Miller. Very easy to sign up for Twitter. You don't need all the information you need to get on Facebook that you need on Twitter. You just basically pick a name for yourself and tell them where you are or whatever. But if you feel like joining Twitter to meet me, at Gary Music Miller. You can send me direct messages that only I will see. Of course, you can post publicly there. We have an email address, rdwgmm, that's Radio Days with Gary Music Miller, abbreviated, rdwgmm@gmail.com. I read all of those. I've gotten a few. I mentioned it was like Facebook to me. I just rehooked with a cousin of mine in Florida, wrote me, Dave Wright, who was in radio himself and does voice work now. And Dave wrote me and said, it's great to see you on YouTube, cousin. And I may never see him live again, but we got to reconnect. So write me at Radio Days with Gary Music Miller, rdwgmm@gmail.com, Twitter. I don't know how else to get a hold of me. There's got to be.
You can leave comments on the YouTube
Yes.
page under the video. You can always leave a little note there. Everything's read. And we go through the emails. Either one of the two of us will go through them and check them on a regular basis and get back to you that way.
Please do what Tina did. Tina suggested something, and that's when I first set this thing up. I said, it's only going to work if we listen to you. It's not here to star me or to bring me back into the public eye. It's here for me to share thoughts with you about what it was like in the golden days of radio, if you will, in the 70s and 80s. And for those of you that remember me, thank you for that. I'm forever grateful. And you've supported me over these past few years that I've been out of the job. I shouldn't say I'm out of the job, I've retired officially, but got some great comments from people who listen to me, and so please write to us. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about. Nothing's off limits.
Believe me, nothing's off limits.
Yeah, talk about radio, talk about music, concerts, movies, TV shows, restaurants in the area. I still want to get into that, see if we can remember the old places we used to eat. But we got a lot of possibilities, but I don't want to talk about it here and bore you to death, so please write me with your ideas.
Okay, so
us.
if we are finished for right now, we'd like to thank you all for watching. We appreciate your comments. Any comments are appreciated, good, bad, indifferent. We take them all under advisement, and that's the way we get better and try to better our content. And the content's all for you, not for us. It's all for you. So with that said, we're going to say goodbye for right now, and hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. So take care.
That's right.